Yo, what's good? Yo, it's been rough. I've been trying to get these videos out, and every single time I be trying to do something and be on point, update throws my whole settings off. So I've been trying to let the sound back together, and I finally got it back together. But we're gonna jump in, right? It's a big I told you this was gonna happen. I told you this was gonna happen from, well, I didn't make any comments when Last of Us 2 dropped on. Either way, I said it in my last video. This show wasn't gonna hold up, same as the video game. And shout out to TheCriticalDrinker. Basically, he was the first one that made this video that I am going to watch. I'm actually watching his video from Magnus's page due to the fact that his video got copyright struck. I guess HBO didn't like what he had to say, or they didn't like what they heard. The truth hurts. So shout out to Magnus, shout out to TheCriticalDrinker for even doing the review. Magnus's audio is going to be a little bit off due to the fact that Magnus, I don't think, is running his laptop through a capture card, and he's just listening to it, and the camera is just picking up the sound. So it's going to be a little off. You're going to hear him in the background laughing and chuckling from time to time. But I thought it would be cool just to keep it in there due to the fact that it sounds like one of those live audiences replies. So let's get into it. Let's get into this big I told you so.
And I say it that way because that's exactly what this show is starting to feel like for me. Homework. Some mildly unpleasant tasks to be completed as quickly as possible instead of a
it's like Kevin Feige and Marvel
that I can't wait to experience week after week. And apparently, I'm not the only one to feel this way, as the show's lost almost 20% of its audience by a
20% of his audience. And this dude, Neil Druckmann, was like talking about gamers as if we were toxic. Now you got a whole new audience, and more than half of them, I want to say, is just not avid gamers or probably didn't even know about the game. And until after they watched season 1, and you lost 20% of your non-gaming, non-toxic audience. Let that sink in. We weren't that bad after all. You can't take constructive criticism.
Episode 3, and its Rotten Tomatoes score has plummeted to just 49%, officially marking it as rotten for the first time. Golly, possibly caused this.
That really got out of hand fast. It jumped up a notch. It didn't it?
Gamers didn't like it. The audience don't like it. I honestly thought they were going to take another route. And I was talking to somebody, and I was like, yo, they might take another route from the video game because it caught so much backlash. But I guess they honestly thought, with all the negativity that was surrounding Last of Us 2, that people actually bought it because it was a good game. But like I said, it was just going off the fumes and the fire the first Last of Us created. So we were going in with high expectations, and then Neil just cut the cord, right? So it's the same thing that's happened with the show. But
the thing is, almost everyone knew this was coming. Everyone who played the games knew that killing off Joel was going to put the show into a death spiral that it would struggle to pull out of, as the narrative devolved into a grimly sadistic misery simulator where every major character dies or ends up broken and alone. Everyone who watched season 1 could have told you that Bella Ramsey's Ellie was...
Bro, I'm not a fan of her. I love her acting. She comes off as Ellie, but the face just throws me off. And she's not an ugly person. It's just for some reason, it's just throwing me off. It's just too much forehead, and the eyes is just too close. It's just throwing me off. And she's not an ugly person. It's just awkward. I really think that the person that's playing Abby currently should have played Ellie, but who knows? They probably didn't have Abby casted around that time. Either way, I really thought that they weren't going to get rid of Pedro Pascal. He's such a big actor right now. You would have thought that they would have just rewrote the whole thing and kept him throughout all the seasons or whatnot, just because they know that he would bring audience. But they actually killed this dude. And these two girls, I already said it, they're not going to be able to hold the show. They're not going to be able to hold the weight. And I'm not going past episode 2. So I'm just getting the feedback from everybody else that's been watching, and my predictions have been on point.
Misery simulator.
Isn't going to be able to carry a show like this without Pedro Pascal there to support her. Everyone knew this was coming, except for HBO, apparently. They say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again and expecting different results.
Yo, I'm so happy that Neil is not dropping The Last of Us 3. And if HBO was smart, they wouldn't waste money on a season 3. Just kill it now. Kill the whole thing. I wouldn't even be mad if they just dropped the show if they didn't finish filming season 2 and just dropped the whole damn show. I don't care. I would not care, as I know it's gonna be trash. But I was just surprised.
It's an intervention pronto because,
in technical terminology, he's a loon.
But from a writing point of view, I think it's actually worth explaining why killing off Joel was such a massive mistake, both in the games and in the show, because this ties into a much bigger issue about character relationships and the importance of having balance and contrast in your stories. And the reality here is that without Joel, The Last of Us has no emotional heart anymore.
Same thing as the game.
See, the first game, and to some extent the first season of The Last of Us, both successfully tapped into one of the most compelling and universal character dynamics in all of fiction, the bond between a father and his daughter.
And that set the stage for the entire game. That set the stage for Last of Us being so good. And he just killed it.
It was definitely an unconventional version of that relationship. Ellie wasn't really Joel's daughter, and they didn't even meet each other until she was an adolescent, but the all-important dynamic was still the same. Joel was the experienced protector and father figure, and Ellie was the young and vulnerable daughter that he had to guide, protect, and watch over. He was jaded, cynical, and pragmatic, hardened by a lifetime of tough choices and brutal survival, while she was idealistic and maybe a touch naive, eager to see the world without knowing much about how dangerous it could really be out there.
Bro, he hit it so... There's the way that he hit every point, and the way how every gamer felt when they played The Last of Us. It was so well written. And I just don't understand how the same man wrote part 2. I'm thinking he plagiarized the first one. I don't know. I don't view that as the same person. He's just completely disconnected from his own work.
Obviously, she was no match for him physically because he was a grown man and she was a little girl, and if anything, she's actually a burden on him at first. She doesn't know much about hunting or survival. She makes a lot of mistakes that almost get them both killed, and despite all her bullshit and bravado, she's actually pretty scared and intimidated by the world around her. It made for a great contrast, allowing them to spark off each other, provoke and challenge each other, and grow and develop in interesting ways. Because of Joel, Ellie gradually learns how to look after herself, how to survive in a harsh and unforgiving world, to the point where she even has to step up and become a protector for him when he's badly wounded. And because of Ellie, Joel's demeanour slowly softens as he warms to her and starts to see her as more than just a package that has to be delivered to a destination. He begins to see her as someone he genuinely cares about, a surrogate for the daughter that he lost 20 years earlier. Joel brings out Ellie's inner strength, while Ellie brings out Joel's humanity. In a neat piece of narrative give and take, they each fill gaps in the other's life. The show mostly managed to replicate this dynamic in Season 1, despite its best efforts. And the reason I say that is that you can tell they did everything in their power to toughen Ellie up and break Joel.
And the show, they made her seem like she'd been through the trenches a bit, and not as naive and cynical and ignorant about what's going on. But completely
down, bending the dynamic as far as they could possibly go without breaking it. The Ellie in the show was much more confident, assertive and capable right from the start, easily taking control of conversations and disagreements, rarely showing any fear of Joel or the world around them, frequently disobeying his instructions and mouthing off at him as if a 50-year-old...
Bro, doesn't she look... You know what? I'm not gonna talk about her. That's bad. I'm sorry. That's bad. It's just distracting.
Old man with a gun that she barely knows is the kind of guy you'd want to risk pissing off. TV Joel, on the other hand, is much less decisive, capable and stoic than his game counterpart, even at the beginning of their journey together. He suffers from panic attacks, he's starting to struggle, and often seems to
forgot about that.
He frequently gets flustered and outmaneuvered in conversations with Ellie, and he even defers to her when it comes to making decisions, as if a 12-year-old girl who's never been outside the walls of her hometown is the kind of person you should listen to in a situation.
I didn't even realize they added that in. I don't know what for. What that didn't really... I actually didn't even notice that. That wasn't really distracting. But now that he points it out, it saw that they were trying to deteriorate his character a little bit and undermine him and make Ellie a little stronger. I get what he's saying.
Hate so much about the things that you choose to be.
The subtext here is that TV show Ellie has a lot less to learn from Joel than her game counterpart. She needs him less. There's less of a contrast between them, so the father-daughter dynamic is weakened considerably. It's not destroyed completely, but it's far inferior to the game. And that's not even taking into account all the shameless political pandering the show indulges in.
Communist. Nah, I didn't like that.
It is that, literally. This is a commune. We're communists. This place actually fucking works.
You see, kids, if everyone just pulls together and does their part, communism really can work for all of us. To find out more about how you can get involved, contact your local political commissar now. Still, it was enough to keep...
What would Ellie know about communism and that whole... I didn't even peep that. When I was watching the episode. What is up with YouTube and all these random things? I can't even pause without commercials. It's crazy. Either way, I did not peep that. I try to stay as far away from political stuff on this channel, but I didn't realize there were...
audience is happy with season 1 of the show. That, however, is gone now. Joel's dead, and instead Ellie is left with Dina to play off of. And well, that's a whole different dynamic that's considerably less interesting.
Much
Why?
less.
Because there's no contrast between these two characters. They're about the same age, the same gender, and roughly the same level of experience and competence. Even their personalities are broadly similar. Ellie's a bit more serious and focused, and Dina's a bit more outgoing and playful, but there's really not that much of a difference between them. Joel and Ellie's relationship wasn't just a broken man and a frightened girl trying to find a way to connect with each other. It was a clash of different generations and worldviews. Joel, who still remembered the old world before the collapse, and Ellie, who was born into the new world but still has to experience it. Joel's maturity and experience versus Ellie's youthful passion and curiosity. Ellie and Dina don't have any of that because they're so similar, it's more like watching a person talking to themselves. Their scenes come across as flat, dull and tedious, and not just because the actors don't have much chemistry together. Neither of them has anything particularly interesting or insightful to say. They don't offer contrasting opinions drawn from different life experiences. They don't even have different physical capabilities.
It's just, why did they think this was gonna work? These commercials. But why did they think this was gonna work? Why didn't they just change it? I would have been okay with a whole new story.
That might offer some kind of contrast in how they approach situations. They're just two asshole teenagers meandering through the world and swapping shitty jokes and speculating about stuff that they don't really understand. And how can I put this? Teenagers aren't exactly the most interesting people you'll ever meet, and for obvious reasons. They haven't seen and done enough to mold them into interesting people yet. They're more like houses that have just been moved into. Yeah, potential is there, but there's none of the interesting decoration or personality that builds up over time. In fact, when you think about it, the three main characters in this show now are all pretty similar. They're the same gender, roughly the same age range, the same size and build, and the same level of experience. Again, there's no real contrast between them, and so there's less to get interested and invested in. It also means that this show is badly missing gravitas. Like it or not, there's a certain kind of authority and charisma and command that only older men possess. And women don't have it, and when you erase it from a narrative, you lose that sense of believability and gravity that a show Last of Us is desperately striving for. It doesn't have it now, and you won't find it with characters like Ellie, Abby, and Dina. All of this is my long-winded way of saying that killing off Joel was a huge mistake in the games, and it's likely to be just as damaging to the TV show. Not only was it a shitty way to kill off such a popular character, but his death leaves behind a narrative hole that nobody else is capable of filling. They really did try the same thing as before, and surprise, they got the same fucking result. And they really have no one to blame but themselves. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
I told you so. I like reveling in this I told you so moment. Because there's a lot of people that I went to work and some friends that were just like, I really like The Last of Us 2. Why? You don't know anything else about it. You've never played the game. Oh, and as we speak, I took this video from Magnus, but the video is now back up. I didn't even need to take it. I'm so upset. I just did double the work for no reason. But either way, shout out to Critical Drinker. Shout out to Magnus for providing it when the video was down. And I told you so. The Last of Us 2 sucks. And I hope... What's that next game that's supposed to drop from Neil? What the heck is it? The space game with that bald-headed chick. I'm not playing that either. I already know it's gimmicky. I already know it's going to be trash. So, I'm out.